The Boy Who Witnessed the American Revolution, a peaceful historical story of courage, family, and hope. The quiet village. The summer of 1775 began quietly in a small village in Massachusetts. The village was surrounded by green hills, tall oak trees, narrow dirt roads, and fields of wheat that moved gently whenever the wind passed through it. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. Children played beside the river. Farmers worked in the fields. Women hung clothes outside their wooden houses. Old men gathered near the village store and talked about the weather. But beneath the peaceful surface, something had changed. People were worried. They spoke more quietly than before. They looked toward the road whenever they heard the sound of horses. And in many homes, old muskets had been taken down from walls and cleaned. In one small wooden house at the edge of the village lived a 12-year-old boy named Samuel Carter. Samuel was an ordinary boy. He loathed climbing trees. He loved fishing in the river. He loathed warm bread with honey. And more than anything, he loathed listening to his grandfather tell stories. His grandfather, Thomas Carter, was nearly 70 years old. He had traveled farther than most people in the village and had seen many places. Every evening, Thomas sat beside the fireplace and told Samuel stories about forests, ships, storms, and distant towns. But that summer, Grandfather Thomas told different stories. Stories about soldiers, stories about taxes, stories about Parliament, stories about people who wanted greater freedom. One evening, Samuel sat beside him. "Grandfather," he asked, "is there really going to be a wars?" Thomas looked into the fire. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he answered quietly, "I hope not." Samuel looked confused. "But everyone says there will be." Thomas nodded. "Sometimes people say they want peace while preparing for war." The fire crackled. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Samuel looked toward the window. "Who will win?" Thomas smiled sadly. "That is not the question you should ask." "What should I ask?" "You should ask what people are willing to lose for freedom." Samuel did not understand. Not yet. He would understand later. Much later. The sound of the bell. A few days later, Samuel woke before sunrise. He heard a bell. Ding, ding, ding. It was coming from the center of the village. Samuel quickly got out of bed. He put on his shirt and trousers and ran downstairs. His mother was already awake. "Samuel," she whispered, "stay inside. Wait, there may be trouble." "What happened?" She looked toward the road. "I don't know." Samuel wanted to ask another question, but then they heard it. Horses. Many horses. Samuel moved toward the window. His mother caught his shoulder. "Don't you?" "But Mama, stay away from the window." Samuel listened. Outside, voices grew louder. Men were running through the village. Someone shouted, "Wake everyone." Another voice answered, "The British are coming." Samuel's heart began to beat faster. His mother pulled him away from the window. His little sister, Emily, came downstairs crying, "What is happening?" Their mother hugged her. "Nothing will happen to us." But Samuel noticed that her hands were shaking. That frightened him more than the shouting outside. Then the village bell rang again. Ding, ding, ding. It was no longer the sound of a peaceful morning. It was a warning. Grandfather's musket. Grandfather Thomas entered the room carrying an old musket. Samuel stared at it. He had seen it many times above the fireplace. He had never seen his grandfather hold it. "Grandfather," Thomas checked the weapon carefully. His face was serious. "Samuel, listen to me." Samuel nodded. "If soldiers come here, you stay with your mother. But what about you?" "I will stay with the other men." Samuel swallowed. "Are you going to fight?" Thomas looked at the boy. "I may have to." Samuel looked at the old musket. "You are too old." Thomas laughed softly. "Perhaps." Then his expression became gentle. "But sometimes old men have to stand beside young men." Samuel did not know what to say. Thomas placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember something, Samuel." "What?" "Courage does not mean you are not afraid. Thomas pointed toward Samuel Ascart. Courage means you do what is right even when you are afraid. Those words stayed with Samuel for the rest of his life. With the messenger that afternoon, Samuel met a young man named Nathan. Nathan was 17. He was fast, brave, and always ready to help me. He arrived at Samuel's house carrying a folded message. Thomas, Nathan said, the militia needs more men. Grandfather Thomas nodded. What about the roads? British patrols were seen near the eastern bridge. Samuel listened carefully. Nathan noticed him. You are Samuel, aren't you? Yes. You know the forest trail behind the mill? Samuel nodded. I have used it many times. Nathan smiled. Good. You know the village better than most soldiers do. Samuel felt proud. But Grandfather Thomas immediately said, he is a child. Nathan nodded. I know. Then Nathan looked at Samuel, which means he should stay safe. Samuel frowned. He wanted to help. He wanted to prove that he was brave, but he was only 12. That evening, another messenger arrived. The news was worse. Fighting had already begun. The American colonies were no longer simply arguing. Men were dying. Samuel stood beside the window and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange. The fields became golden. For a moment, everything looked peaceful. He wondered how something so terrible could begin beneath such a beautiful sky. The road to Lexington several weeks later. Samuel's life changed forever. One morning, Grandfather Thomas received a message. Men were needed to carry supplies. Thomas prepared to leave. Samuel watched him put on his coat. Are you coming back? Thomas paused. Yes, you promised. Thomas smiled. I promise I will try. Samuel knew that was not the same as a promise. He hugged his grandfather. Thomas placed something in Samuel's hand. It was a small brass compass. Keep this. What for? So you remember that every road has a direction. Samuel looked at the compass. Where are you going? Thomas looked toward the distant hills. Lexington. Samuel had heard the name. Everyone had. The fighting near Lexington and Concord had become a story repeated throughout the colonies. Men had marched. Shots had been fired. The countryside had awakened to war. Thomas joined the group of men leaving the village. Samuel stood beside the road. His grandfather looked back once. Then he disappeared beyond the trees. Samuel held the compass tightly. That was the first time he understood that the war was no longer a distant story. It had entered his own family. The empty chair. Days passed. Then weeks. Thomas did not return. Every evening, Samuel looked down the road. Every evening, he hoped to see the old man's coat, but the road remained empty. At dinner, his mother's eyes often moved toward the chair beside the fireplace, the chair where Thomas usually sat. Nobody spoke about it. One rainy evening, Samuel finally asked, "Do you think grandfather is alive?" His mother stopped eating. "I believe he is." "Why?" "Because we must believe." Samuel looked down. "What if he doesn't come home?" His mother reached across the table. "Then we remember him." The rain continued. Tap, tap, tap. Samuel listened. For the first time, the sound of rain made him sad. The redcoats often arrived. The leaves turned gold and red, but there was little joy in the village. One afternoon, Samuel was walking near the river when he heard horses. He immediately hid behind a large tree. A group of British soldiers rode along the road. Their red coats were clearly visible. Samuel had never seen them so close. He held his breath. One soldier stopped. He looked toward the trees and Samuel froze. The soldier watched for a few seconds. Then, another man called him. The soldier turned his horse. They continued down the road. Samuel waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Then he ran home. His mother opened the door. "What happens?" "Soldiers." "How many?" 6, maybe 7. She closed the door quickly. That night, the village became silent. No children played outside. No one gathered near the store. Every house closed its shutters. The war had arrived at their doorstep. The hidden message. A few days later, Nathan returned. He looked exhausted. His coat was muddy. His boots were covered in dirt. He knocked on Samuel's door. Samuel opened it. Nathan smiled. "I need to speak with your mother." Samuel called her. Nathan handed her a folded paper. "It came from your father," he said. Samuel's heart jumped. "Grandfather's?" Nathan nodded. "He is alive." Samuel almost cried with relief. "Where is he?" "I can't say." "White, because if the message is captured, soldiers must not know where he is." Samuel understood. Nathan looked at him. "Your grandfather asked me to tell you something." "What?" he said. "Keep studying, keep helping your family, and never let hatred become stronger than hope." Samuel stared at Nathan. Those words sounded exactly like grandfather. "Will he come home?" Nathan looked away. "I hope so." Samuel hated those words. "I hope so." They were becoming too common. The winter of 1776 was hard. Snow covered the roads. The river froze near the edges. Firewood became precious. Food became expensive. Many men had left their homes to join the fighting. The women and children were left behind. Samuel helped his mother every day. He chopped wood. He carried water. He repaired fences. He helped neighbors who had no sons at home. He was still only 12. But war had made him older. One evening, Emily asked, "Samuel, when will the war end?" He looked at the snow outside. "I don't know. Will we be free?" Samuel remembered grandfather's words. He smiled. "I think so." Emily smiled too. Neither of them knew what freedom would look like, but they believed in it. The Declaration. Summer came again. On a warm July morning, news traveled through the village. Something important had happened in Philadelphia. The colonies had declared independence. Samuel stood outside the village store while a man read the announcement aloud. People listened silently. Then someone cheered. Another person began to clap. Soon the whole village was celebrating. Samuel looked toward the sky. For a moment, he imagined his grandfather hearing the news. A new nation. A new beginning. But the war was not over. The Declaration did not end the fighting. It made the struggle even more serious. That evening, Samuel sat beside the river. Nathan joined him. "Are you happy?" Samuel nodded. "Are we free now?" Nathan thought for a moment. "Not yet." Samuel looked surprised. "Then what did the Declaration change?" Nathan smiled. "It told the world what we were fighting for." Samuel looked at the water. Freedom. The word seemed bigger than ever. The long winter the following winter became one of the hardest periods of the war. The army suffered from cold, hunger, and exhaustion. News traveled slowly. Sometimes weeks passed without letters. Samuel continued helping his family. But he had begun to understand something. A war was not only fought on battlefields, it was fought in kitchens, in farms, in small villages, in homes where mothers waited for sons, in letters that never arrived, in empty chairs beside fireplaces, in quiet prayers before sleep. Every person carried part of the burden. One evening, Samuel's mother said, "You have become very quiet." Samuel smiled. "I think I am growing up." She looked at him sadly. Too quickly. The secret journey. One spring morning, Nathan came to Samuel. "I need your help." Samuel looked surprised. "With what?" "There is a family living beyond the forest. They need medicine." "Why can't you take it?" "I have to leave for the town." Samuel understood. "I know the forest path." Nathan smiled. "That's why I am asking." Samuel's mother was worried, but the journey was short. Samuel carried a small bag. Inside were medicine, bread, and a letter. He followed the narrow trail. Birds sang above him. The forest smelled of pine and wet earth. For several hours, the war seemed far away. Then he heard something. Horses. Samuel immediately hid. 3 British soldiers passed along a nearby road. The bag suddenly felt very heavy. He waited until they disappeared. Then he continued. By sunset, he reached the farmhouse. An old woman opened the door. When she saw the medicine, tears filled her eyes. "Thank you." Samuel handed her the letter. She read it silently. Then she hugged him. Samuel returned home the next morning. He had not fought a battle. He had not fired a weapon, but he had helped someone survive. And he realized that courage came in many forms. His grandfather returns one autumn afternoon. Samuel was chopping wood. He heard footsteps. He looked up. An old man was walking slowly toward the house. Samuel dropped the axe. "Grandfathers," Thomas smiled. He looked thinner, older, but he was alive. Samuel ran toward him. They embraced. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Thomas laughed. "You've grown." Samuel smiled through tears. "So have you." Thomas laughed again. Inside the house, Samuel's mother cried when she saw her father. That evening, they sat beside the fireplace. Samuel asked about the war. Thomas told him stories, but he did not tell stories about glory. He told Samuel about tired soldiers, about cold nights, about men who missed their families, about friends who never came home. "Was it worth it?" Samuel finally asked. Thomas looked at the fire. "That is a question people will argue about for many years. What do you think?" Thomas looked at Samuel. "I think freedom is precious." He paused. "But remember this." Samuel waited. "Freedom is not simply winning a war." Thomas pointed toward the village. "It is building a country where people can live with dignity after the war ends." Samuel never forgot those words. Yet, the war continues. The war continued. Years passed. Samuel grew taller. His voice changed. His childhood slowly disappeared. But the village remained. The river still flowed. The trees still grew. The church bell still rang. People continued to hope. Sometimes soldiers passed through the village. Sometimes wounded men arrived. Sometimes letters brought wonderful news. Sometimes they brought terrible news. Samuel learned not to celebrate too quickly. He learned not to lose hope too quickly either. Life was somewhere between those two feelings. Chapter 15. A letter from the south. One morning a letter arrived. It was from Nathan. The fighting had moved south. He was still serving. Samuel read the letter several times. Nathan wrote about the long marches. He wrote about strange towns. He wrote about rain. He wrote about missing home. At the end of the letter, he wrote, "Tell everyone that we remember the village." Samuel folded the paper carefully. He placed it inside a wooden box. It became one of his most treasured possessions. The last battle years after the war had begun, news finally arrived that the fighting was coming to an end. People gathered outside the store. A rider arrived with information. The British Army had surrendered at Yorktown. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then someone shouted, "The war is over!" The village erupted. People hugged each other. Some laughed. Some cried. Samuel stood quietly. He thought about the morning when his grandfather had left. He thought about the empty chair, the winter, the soldiers, the hidden messages, the long years. Then he looked at Grandfather Thomas. The old man was smiling. Samuel walked toward him. "Is it really over?" Thomas nodded. "The fighting is ending." Samuel smiled. "Then we're free." Thomas looked toward the village. "Now the real work begins." The quiet morning, the next morning, was peaceful. No soldiers marched through the village. No messenger came running. No warning bell rang. The sun rose slowly over the hills. Samuel walked to the river. He sat beneath an old oak tree. The water moved gently. Birds sang. A soft breeze passed through the leaves. For the first time in years, Samuel felt completely safe. He took the brass compass from his pocket. The needle moved slightly. Then it settled. Samuel smiled. He thought about all the roads he had traveled. The road to the forest. The road to the farmhouse. The road his grandfather had taken. The road that had led the colonies through war. And the road that now led toward a new country. Samuel understood something. History was not only made by famous generals, it was made by ordinary people. Farmers, mothers, children, messengers, Shopkeepers, soldiers, teachers, people who waited, people who hoped, people who kept going. A new America years later. Samuel often told his own children about the revolution. They would sit around the fireplace and ask questions. Did you really see soldiers? Yes. Were you afraid? Yes. Did you fight? Samuel would smile. Not with a musket. What did you do? Samuel would think about the medicine he carried through the forest. I helped when I could. Then his children would ask, was the war exciting? Samuel would shake his head. No. He would tell them that war was not a story of adventure, it was a story of sacrifice. He told them about people who lost homes, people who lost friends, people who waited years for loved ones to return, and then he would tell them about hope, because hope was the one thing the war could not take away. The old compass. Samuel kept his grandfather's brass compass for the rest of his life. It became scratched and dark with age, but it still worked. Whenever Samuel felt lost, he would hold it in his hand. He remembered Grandfather Thomas saying, every road has a direction. Samuel eventually understood what he had meant. A country also had a direction. It could choose fear, it could choose hatred, it could choose revenge, or it could choose hope. America was still young, it had many problems, many disagreements, many difficult years ahead. But Samuel believed that a nation, like a person, could learn. It could make mistakes. It could change. It could grow. The boy becomes an old man. Many decades passed. The small village changed. New houses appeared. The old store became a larger building. Roads were improved. Children who once played beside the river grew old. New generations were born. Samuel became an old man. His hair turned white. His hands became thin, but his memories remained clear. One evening, he sat beside the same river where he had once dreamed about freedom. His granddaughter sat beside him. Grandfather, she asked, what was America like when you were a boy? Samuel looked at the sunset. It was quiet. She laughed. But there was a war. Yes, then how could it be quiet? Samuel smiled. Because sometimes the loudest part of history happens inside people, as hearts. She did not understand. Not yet. Samuel looked across the water. I was only 12 when the revolution began. You saw it. I saw pieces of it. Did you know you were watching his stories? Samuel shook his head. No. He smiled. When you were young, you don't know which ordinary day will become part of history. The meaning of freedom. The granddaughter looked at him. What does freedom mean? Samuel thought carefully. Freedom means being able to hope for tomorrow. She waited. It means being able to speak. He paused. It means being able to build a home and believe your children may have a better life. And is America perfect? Samuel laughed softly. No country is perfect. Then why did people fight? Because people believed they could build something better. He looked toward the setting sun. And that belief is sometimes stronger than fear. The girl held his hand. The river continued flowing. The evening sky became golden. For a moment, Samuel was 12 years old again. He could hear the village bell. He could smell the smoke from the fireplace. He could see his grandfather walking down the road. And he remembered the first lesson of the revolution. Courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was continuing despite it. The final night, that night, Samuel returned home. He placed the brass compass on the table. Beside it, he placed the old letter from Nathan. The paper was yellow now. The words had faded, but Samuel could still read them. Tell everyone that we remember the village. Samuel smiled. He looked out the window. The stars were bright. The country outside had changed beyond recognition, but the night sky was the same. The same stars his grandfather had once looked at. The same moon that had watched soldiers march. The same one that had moved through the trees during the difficult years. Samuel closed his eyes. He thought about the boy he had been, a boy who had wanted to know who would win. Now he understood. The real victory was not simply defeating an enemy. The real victory was surviving the darkness without losing hope. Ye, the story lives on. Samuel's story was eventually passed from one generation to another. His children told it to their children. They told them about the boy who watched soldiers pass through the village, the boy who carried messages, the boy who waited for his grandfather, the boy who learned that history was not only about famous names, it was about ordinary people. And every generation added something to the story. A new memory, a new lesson, a new dream. The story became less about one boy. It became about everyone who lived through difficult times and continued believing in tomorrow. Good night, America. Many years later, the village became quiet again. The river moved beneath the moonlight. The trees whispered in the evening breeze. The church bell rang once. Then everything became still. The old road remained. The old oak tree remained. And beneath the peaceful night sky, the memory of a young boy remained too. A boy who had witnessed the birth of a new nation. A boy who had learned that freedom carries responsibility. A boy who had discovered that courage can be quiet. Sometimes courage is a soldier standing on a battlefield. Sometimes courage is a mother waiting at home. Sometimes courage is a child carrying medicine through a forest. And sometimes courage is simply waking up the next morning and choosing to hope again. The American Revolution ended long ago, but its lessons continued. They traveled through families, through stories, through letters, through generations, and perhaps that is how history truly survives, not only in books, but in the memories of ordinary people. The stars shone above the quiet village, the river flowed beneath them, and somewhere in the peaceful darkness, the old compass rested beside an open window. Its needle pointed steadily north. The night became deeper, the village became quieter, and the story of the boy who witnessed the American Revolution slowly faded into the gentle silence of sleep. Good night, Samuel. Good night, America, and good night to everyone listening. May tomorrow bring peace. May every difficult road lead toward hope. And may the lessons of history remind us that even in the darkest times, the light can still be found. The end.